On this episode, we chat to Ron Weaver, aka American Thai Guy, about his journey into the world of speaking fluent Thai.
So if you want to hear how a foreigner who knew nothing about Thailand ended up teaching foreigners how to speak Thai, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 and finally figured out my $1 million idea this week. Open an OnlyFans page sending bottled air from Chiang Mai to people with a smoke fetish.
I always find it counterintuitive that the air in Chiang Mai is bad. You know,
it's weird, isn't
it? Because you think of it as being like just up north, out in the countryside, away from Bangkok.
Right. It's like going to Phuket and seeing the water is like Klong brown. What's up?
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a 1-year teaching contract 23 years ago. Fell in love with being able to fake my way through a conversation in Thai by just periodically saying, So I never left.
Oh, man. We should have a contest. How long can you hold a conversation with a taxi driver just by going, ting ah.
I just go, I have no idea what he's saying. And then he just nods when I make my sound.
Yeah.
And that sound, by the way, I don't think is the same. It's a Thai thing. Because
really?
in the States, we might go, But we don't go like, Like that sound is like a sound of agreement in Thai.
Oh, interesting.
Do we do that? I don't think we do that.
I don't think so. Maybe in America you go, huh? In Canada we go, eh?
Try that with a Thai person, see what they do.
How's it going, eh? I'll tell you what, you talk about the taxi driver, you throw in a few like, oh, oi, or oi.
Right.
You're good, man.
Yeah,
You can string that out for hours.
So funny. I really do this. Like I'm not exaggerating at all. I really do this. All right, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Greg's visit to the Foreign Correspondents Club to watch a panel on Thailand's air pollution, the return of OG podcaster Joe Rogan to podcast apps and whether or not it's cool to listen to him anymore, and the situation in Phuket, where the crackdown on foreigners behaving badly seems to have been turned up to 11. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700, for real, bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Proud of myself writing that and getting a Spinal Tap reference in there when I can. Got to take those chances.
I thought of Spinal Tap when I read that.
All right, don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of our bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place. Sing. All right, on this episode, we are joined by someone we've both admired for a long time and wanted to have on the show, a young fella by the name of Ron Weaver. Now, you might know him by the name he uses on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Threads, simply American Thai Guy, where he produces short and very sticky little skits that usually focus on a single Thai word or phrase. Spoiler alert, Ron is another one of these annoying Farangs who came to Thailand after Ed and I did, but speaks Thai exponentially better than we ever could. Now, it would be easy to be bitter about the whole thing, but damn if he isn't one of the coolest and most interesting guys we've talked to. Ron joined us from his home in Chiang Mai for part 1 of 2, where he talks about visiting Thailand as a complete noob and his journey to becoming widely known for the quality of the Thai that he speaks. So here is our very fun conversation with our buddy Ron Weaver. All right, well, we are happy to have on the show someone I've seen online for a long time now, and someone who has a couple of mutual friends in common, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But Ron Weaver, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, and it's kind of rare that both Ed and I are online here chatting with you. Usually, it's just me. Ed's got a much more active social life than me. But Ed, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I couldn't miss this because I've been following Ron for a while on social media. It's just just before we started recording, but I was mentioning that I think the way he presents himself. I'm just getting to know him now in real life, but just the way he presents himself online is very different from just any other foreigner I know in Thailand, and so he's, I think, a perfect guest for the show.
Yeah, and before we get rolling, I think maybe a lot of people might not know your real name. They might know you online as American Thai Guy. You're
Yes.
on Instagram, on Facebook, on Threads, and etc.
Right.
So yeah, American Thai Guy. Here we go.
My full name is Ronald Gregory Weaver.
Ah,
So
I like that.
I used to be called Greg when I was a kid. They used to use my middle name when I was a kid too. So that's interesting that your name is Greg as well. So
Sure.
but my father's name is also Ronnie. So it's this is why people call me Quan. Actually, my nickname is Quan because it was a name that was given to me when I was in college because my father was the mayor of the city at the time. He was the first black mayor of the capital city of Florida, which is
Oh, wow.
Tallahassee. And during the time I was in college, he was the mayor. And then whenever I went somewhere and I said my name, his name is Ronnie, my name is Ronald, but if you use the short version, it's the same name. So
Right.
whenever I went somewhere, they would always start talking about my father and the politics and all this kind of stuff. And my friends felt like, hey, you need some individuality. Why don't you use a nickname? So this is why I have the nickname Quan. Which
They just made that up. They just made up the name
No,
Quan.
yeah, they just made up that name. They just made it up. They thought it was cool, and it was like, we'll call you Quan. And I said, okay. So after that, coming to Thailand, then Thai peoples call me this name, and it is a Thai name when you pronounce it in Thai. Like Quan is the Thai pronunciation, and
Sure.
that's what people normally call me, other than foreigners. Only the foreigners call me Ron.
Oh,
So what do you prefer? Do you want us to try to Thai-ify you, or can we go with Ron?
No, Ron. Whatever. I'm pretty easygoing when it comes to my name. Just pronounce it correctly. Ron or Quan is fine. Whatever you like.
the first thing I'm thinking of is Jerry Maguire, wasn't it? When Cuba Gooding Jr.
The Quan, the Quan. Yes.
That's funny.
So Ron Lynn, tell us a little bit about yourself then. Let's learn a bit about your journey. We're going to talk about your Thai, and we're going to talk about some other interesting topics too that you can give us some unique insights on. But how did you end up in Thailand? And you speak Thai fluently. Tell us a little bit about that. What's going on?
When I first the first time I came here was when a friend of mine invited me to go on holiday here back in 2001.
Okay.
And when he invited me to go to Thailand, because I had just got broken up with my baby's mom then, and he was like, yeah, don't be depressed. Why don't we just go on a holiday and we'll go to Thailand? And I said, where's that? I had no idea where Thailand was. And he was like, oh, it's in Southeast Asia. And I said, well, what's there? And he goes, I can't explain it. You just have to go and see for yourself. He said, just trust me. So I said, okay, booked a flight. And a few months later, I came for my first trip to Thailand, and I went on a tour where they took us to Pattaya and Bangkok and a couple of the islands. And I fell in love with the place. It's just, the culture was very welcoming. The food was amazing. The weather was great.
Yeah,
The women were beautiful.
Gee, we've never heard this before. We've never heard any of this before.
Impossible.
No, those are like the big ones. That is what gets you. Just like your list was perfect. Those are the hooks. Those are the Thai hooks that grab you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was enamored, and I came back again another 2 times before the first time that I stayed for an extended period for about 3 months. And I'll tell you why I started learning how to speak Thai, because on the second trip that I came here, I got lost in Bangkok because back then we still didn't have mobile devices and stuff where that we could easily contact with one another. We didn't, the mobile phone was, we had mobile phones, but roaming was expensive, and we didn't really do
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
I got here on that trip, and I couldn't contact my friend who had organized the hotel,
Oh,
and
okay.
I asked a bunch of people, taxi drivers, everyone, trying to ask them where the place was, and they could not understand my pronunciation. So I couldn't find a hotel that I was staying in. And I ended up having to find a hotel. I ended up getting hustled for, money for various things because of course you're new, you're a target because you're a tourist. That's just the
Yep.
way it is. No matter where you
Right.
go,
Right.
that is the reality. So then I was there for 2 days, and I knew we were supposed to meet in Pattaya on the third day. And so I went to Pattaya, and when I got there, I saw my friend standing in front of the mall, and I was like, "Oh my god, dude, I've been lost for 2 days." And he was like, "Yeah, man, I don't know what's happened. Why didn't you go to your hotel room?" I said, "Dude, nobody could understand what I was saying when I was trying to get to the hotel." And I said, "You know what, dude? I want to live here, but there's no way I am going to live here and don't understand what people are saying and cannot communicate
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say. If I cannot
Right.
communicate it, there's how could I live
Right.
I could
Right.
just,
in a
I
place
have a
in
picture in my mind of you all, your clothes are all ripped and you're covered in dirt and like, it's like flies by. You're like, oh my
I
God.
mean, it wasn't that rough to be fair because I had my luggage and stuff. It was just that I couldn't, the place that was already booked, that I had already paid for. I just couldn't find it, and so I just had to go
Right.
rent another room, and I slept a couple of nights, and then I met with them for the rest of the trip in Pattaya.
It's definitely rough when you can't communicate with people. I felt a little bit of this when I was in Japan, and of course, in Japan in general, they won't speak English with you almost at all. And luckily, I had 1 year of Japanese in university that kind of saved me. My Japanese is horrible, of course, but man, and especially Thai people are pretty good with very basic English, but if they don't understand your accent, then you're in big trouble.
Yes, that was the issue, and I didn't, I had no background in that, so I just struggled a bit. But I knew at that point this is the reason why to this day that I can speak Thai as well as I do because I committed to it. And once I started to be able to understand and communicate in Thai, I started seeing the positive aspects of this new language and the different things that made it so interesting and so entertaining to use in comparison to English.
Sure.
So my first trip, for first long term trip was in 2003, where I studied with a tutor, a individual tutor, one on one for 3 months, and she gave me the foundation of what I needed to know in order to communicate in Thai, and I struggled through it, and I. Every time I got the chance to try to speak Thai, to go out and do something that I needed to survive, I would try to speak Thai. And then sure, it was probably horrible when I first
Right.
started, but
Got to start
you
somewhere.
got to fight through that in order to get to that next level. So it took me a few years to get to the point I could say that I was fluent. I'd say about 5 years.
Ron, are you a language guy? Do you speak French? Do you have any other languages besides English? Did you study language in school?
I started studying. I was in advanced placement courses when I was a kid, and they had me doing stuff like developing film when I was in sixth grade and learning how to speak French.
Huh.
And unfortunately, I did not continue to practice French, so I lost
Gotcha.
it
Gotcha.
when I was younger. And then I started learning Spanish when I was in high school, and then I was just annoyed with my teacher, so I didn't continue to learn how to speak Spanish then. So, but when I believe that if I had continued those other languages, maybe I would be
Right.
trilingual, maybe speak four languages by now. But if you don't use it, you are going to lose it. So I lost
Yeah.
those other
Gotcha.
languages. But I don't think that I'm necessarily a polyglot like some people who speak many languages, but I think if in my earlier, years, if I had focused on more languages, I now do believe that I probably would be able to wouldn't have too much of an issue with it, because I think if I can learn to speak Thai,
Oh,
French
for sure.
and Spanish and things
Yeah,
of other are not that
I think
difficult.
so.
You know what I
right.
mean? In comparison.
You know what's funny is that you had that shock moment, that jolt when you first got here of being lost and separated from your friend, and you're like, damn, I got to fix this. And it's something that I've seen from other friends that we have who also speak very good Thai. Our buddy Richie, he was in a little village in the middle of Thailand by himself when he first got here, and if he didn't speak Thai, he didn't eat.
Right,
Someone
right.
else on the show in previous years, Peter Tuinstra, who was a guest in season 1, I think, he learned Thai when he was in the military in the States, but when he came here, he was like, there's a bunch of Thai military dudes, go and figure out these operations that we're doing. So for someone like Ed and I, who I think arrived and were slowly eased into a comfortable bed, and everyone around us spoke English,
That's right.
and we didn't
That's
need
right.
to speak Thai. So
That's right.
it's so easy to get into that little lazy rut and just stay there.
Yeah, and stay kind
if
of
you
in
don't
the
have
bubble.
that catalyzing moment.
That makes a huge difference.
Right. I agree. After being here for about 2 years and making some efforts and mostly failing, I realized pretty early that if I wanted to learn it, I would have to leave Bangkok or go to a village, because like Greg said, it's too easy to not do it. And so I needed to create a situation where I had to do it. And then I never did that. So that's where
Right.
that's where I'm at.
I learned mostly from immersion, where everyone around me was speaking Thai. And again, like you just mentioned, someone said, if you don't speak it, you don't eat. I lived
Yeah.
out a little bit in the province, out in the provinces a little bit at the beginning of this journey. And that was the same issue for me. If you want to be able to communicate and, become a part of the community, talk to the people in, the family, then of course, then you need to be able to speak Thai. So it's a major motivator. And it's really also about needing to survive. What do you need to survive? If you need language to survive, you have no choice but to add it to your abilities.
Mhm.
But if you're in the tourist places where they want to practice English, you're not going to get the
Sure.
chance to, especially if you're trying to speak Thai and you're not very good at it,
Right.
because then it makes it so that they don't even want to practice with you. It's a pain to hear you speak Thai, and I understand that now when I hear
I'm
some
sure.
people speak it.
Yeah,
Sure.
I've tried Thai nights with my wife, and we get about 15 minutes in. She's like, "No, we're out. We're done."
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
Yeah, that's
and I
why
get
basically you got to pay someone to speak Thai with you. So,
It's
so
like,
they put up.
I'm
so
so
they put up
bad.
with the
I need to
pain.
give people money to listen to me. That's how bad it is.
That's right.
That's
Well,
basically the case.
to give Greg and I some credit, at least Greg and I are humble about our abilities and very self-effacing. I find it particularly annoying when I'm talking to a foreigner and they brag about their Thai, and I can hear that it's horrible, and it's like I
Yes.
don't know what to say. I try to talk straight, and I'm like, dude, it's not that good. They're like, no, I'm really good. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, it just it's bad.
Here's the reason why that's the case, is because Thai people aren't going to
That's right.
tell you when it's bad, because that's another thing that's I've noticed about the demeanor and the culture of Thai people is they're very forgiving, and they're very concerned about your well-being, and they're concerned about how you feel. So they don't want to make you feel bad when you're trying. You know what I mean? You're doing your best. And
Yeah,
they're not going to be like, trying to fix every word that you say wrong. So that makes it so that when you don't have any feedback that allows you to adjust what you're doing, so you ended up in these habits that are really bad when it comes to Thai
Right.
language. But so it's important that you have people who can tell you when you're saying something wrong. So this is
yeah,
what, when I talk to my clients, when I talk to my private clients, the primary reason you're even with me is because I'm going to tell you when you're wrong.
Sure.
And Thai people probably won't. They'll just do whatever they can to communicate, get the meaning across, get your point, understand your
That's
point,
right.
and then move on.
And if you have the slightest ability, they'll actually tell you your Thai is really good, or put chat mark.
that's
So,
right.
and so,
Chat mark,
that leads a lot of foreigners to think their Thai is good when it's not.
That's what
This
Stu
is
says,
true.
right? He's like, if your Thai is really good, no one's going to comment on it. They're just going to listen to you and respond.
Just listen. Yes, that's true.
That's right. That's right.
Well, tell us, like, where did you go from there? When did you decide to stay? And you just sort of powered through with your learning Thai, just kept getting better and better? Was there any secrets or tricks or shortcuts or the Ron system?
Yeah.
What worked best for you?
I don't think there's necessarily a shortcut. I just think there's some people are going to be better at learning languages and being able to mimic the way that Thai people speak, because that is one of the reasons why people say that I'm fluent or I sound more natural, because I don't speak it the way I think it should be spoken. I just listen to Thai people and I mimic the way they pronounce things,
Right.
and I continue to do that as much as I can, because I don't feel that I'm really that good at Thai, because I can't host a TV show like news or anything like that. That's really really good pronunciation of Thai language, of
I,
Central Thai.
I think we have a mutual friend, Dan Fraser, in common, and he's up on the screen hosting and acting and modeling and all that stuff. It's hard.
Yes, he is really good with, but it's more than Daniel is good at more than just speaking Thai. He has charisma.
He's a handsome
Yeah.
bastard too. That helps.
Yeah, he's a good looking guy with charisma, and I think that will take you a really long way with people when it comes, especially in
Sure.
Thailand. So, but I think that if you are committed to learning this language, then it will be the first thing that comes out of your mouth when you're trying to talk to Thai people, even if you say it wrong, because that's what it takes. You have to be willing to ask questions. You have to be constantly listening. You have to be taking notes. You have to be watching TV shows that you may not understand completely, so that you can get
Yeah.
used to the rhythm of the way that people speak. So if you're not trying to catch all that, if it isn't important enough, then you won't be good at it. It's just that simple. But I continued to listen and continued to try, and then I got a lot better after my maybe sixth year here, when I started watching a TV show called Benthal. You ever heard of this show called Benthal? It's a
No.
Thai sitcom where they're like a group of friends and they go through these situations, and it's funny and stuff, but it's kind of silly. But it gave me a little bit more. It gave me a chance to hear how Thai people talk to each other in a natural way, because they don't use like news type vocabulary. They
Right.
just
Right.
use the common way that Thai people speak to one another, which is uh, a lot different than what you might learn at a school.
You got to, and we've said this on the show before too. It's so easy in the back of a taxi to turn on your headphones and just sit by yourself, or if you're at home alone at night to play the video games or watch TV and zone out. But you've got to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, take yourself out of your comfort zone, and force yourself to deal with this. And it's not natural. It's so easy to just coast
Yep.
and do what comes easy, and that's the
Mm.
trap that we're in, that I'm in anyway.
Yeah, I actually had a one thing I've learned from doing my podcast, because I have a podcast called the Foreigners Chat, but it's in Thai, called Chao Thang Cha Chat, which is I started it back in 2018. I think it was 2018 when I started this. So it was 2000, no, it was 2020 when we were having COVID.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And I saw a kid that was really good with his Thai, and he had only been here 3 years. His name is Julian. I can't remember his last name right now, but you might have heard of him because his nickname is Stang Mu, and he recently was appeared on a show called um, what's the dating show? Take Me Out Thailand.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
Sure. Sure.
he had it went viral, that some of the stuff that he said, but whatever. This kid was really good and sounded really natural speaking Thai language. So I asked him to interview with him, or just have a chat with him, to see what it was like for two foreigners, two Americans, to sit and speak Thai together, right? And after that, I ended up doing up to this day. I think I've done 42 episodes of that, and that's on YouTube. But it's there are no subtitles for English. It's just strictly for Thai
Right.
people, because everyone that watched it was a Thai person who was like, "This is pretty cool that you guys, appreciate our country, you appreciate our culture, you've made the effort to learn, and it motivates them to learn how to speak, English."
Sure.
Mhm.
But
Right.
seeing how so many people that we think that, the average, foreigner, well, the average foreigner probably doesn't speak Thai, but when you do meet other people, a lot of us have very similar experiences.
Hmm.
The
Right.
people that speak Thai have a very similar experience, and their journey to the point where they can actually communicate well enough to make an appearance on a podcast is actually interesting to hear, especially when we come from so many different places. I've had interviews with people from Sweden, from France, Australia, a few people from the U.S.,
Mm.
and someone from Russia as well.
It must just blow Thai people away. I mean, Thai people are always so shocked when, again, if you just have basic Thai. So just
Yes.
have two foreigners speaking 100% in Thai, not just using English and then switching to Thai, but it must blow them away.
Yes, the feedback is always really really positive, but it uh, isn't something that is going to be massively popular. Another thing is that me being the host, and me being a Black American, and being in Thailand being a place where they prefer light skin, makes it so that I have to be extraordinary in
Hmm.
order for me to build a following of Thai
Mm.
people. And
Interesting.
it's definitely a challenge, doing that. But the fact that we have the people that make those appearances, and myself, we know what the benefits are, and what how life can be different when you can speak and understand Thai. Thai
Yeah.
people tend to appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll be a while until I build myself up to listening to your podcast. But for now, I'm happy watching your Instagram videos. So
Yeah,
I find them really, really helpful because um, I personally I find learning Thai from a foreigner, there's just some intangible element there. You're able to explain concepts on a level that I can immediately grok, as the kids would say. And Thai teachers are great as well, but there's always that slight disconnect. So the things that you do in your videos are really interesting, and you just drill down to like a single word, and you do these fun little conversations with yourself where you have a little back
Right.
and forth for a couple of sentences, and then you go into detail about one word, why you used it, how you use it, and what it means. I think they're really, really well done.
appreciate that.
Okay, I agree 100% with that. But I have a problem when it comes to foreigners speaking Thai or giving Thai lessons. I 100% agree with Greg
All right.
in hearing a native English speaker explain something in Thai, using English to explain something in Thai. But my problem is there's so few foreigners whose Thai sounds like a Thai person's Thai that most of the time I want to hear, because I have some friends who their Thai is better than mine, but I don't think they sound like Thai people. And sometimes they try to teach me tones, and I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, dude, don't do that. Like, I've got there's some Thai people right over here, and they're trying to they're trying to teach me tones, and I want to cover my ears because they don't speak correctly. But Ron is an exception. Like, so like basically there's I really probably shouldn't name all. Okay, I'll just say this is not a complete list, but for sure, Stu, Jay, and Ron. These are two foreigners who I think their Thai sounds like Thai.
Hmm.
But a lot of foreigners who speak Thai much better than I do, I don't want to hear it. Is that wrong, Ron? Like I don't want to hear foreigners speak Thai.
I know what you mean, because there are a lot of foreigners who speak Thai, and then they tend to ignore the importance of the tones, uh, and
Right.
they they still really haven't gotten to the point where they understand, because as English native English speakers, we do not have tones that change the definition of the word. Well, we have our sort of the way that we talk about things, and we can use tone to sort of change the intention sometimes. But you can completely change the word to something completely different with the wrong tone or with the right
Sure.
tone.
Sure.
So many people, that's another challenge that I have to go through when I'm teaching others is that they it's just something that some people have a really hard uh, time adapting to. So I understand what you mean where you're because there are a few people that on social media, I won't name any names, that they use Thai and stuff, but their Thai just is just
That- That's right.
it's hard to listen to. You know what I mean?
I don't want to hear it.
Uh,
I don't want to hear
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. So it's when it comes to the videos that I do, my what I try to do is find phrases and words that you might not learn in school, and also that if you use them, you'll tend to sound a little more like Thai people because it's just words that are in natural conversation.
Right, right.
Uh, and I feel like anyone who watches this is already working towards trying to be better at what they're doing. And I hope to motivate people with my videos, but also give them something that they can kind of practice on their own, but do it in a way that makes people feel, like they're having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to have fun.
Yeah, yeah. I remember years ago, and again, this Peter Tuinstra guy, who I'm not even sure if he's in Thailand anymore. He probably still is. He was on the show in
Mm,
season 1. Really nice guy. And I met him actually at the gym back when I used to work out. And I remember I was always confused about the word "kai," "kaigin,"
mm,
and like "kai bai,"
yeah,
and I couldn't
mm,
really understand. No one could really explain it to me. And then he said it really easily. I was like, "What's up with "kai"?" And he said, "It's like, well, if you wanted to eat a piece of cake, and someone said, 'Do you want some cake?' and you would say "kaigin." Like, I've already eaten that
mm,
piece of cake. I don't want any more. And
mm,
it just phrased it in that way that clicked immediately, and I got it.
yeah,
And that's sometimes all
yeah.
it takes to push you across the line.
Yes, that's again, that's what I really try to do with it is just
Yeah, you do it well too.
but I don't want to like teach people stuff that's like normal or things that you might hear from your average teacher or something like that.
Mm. Well, if listeners haven't heard or seen one of Ron's videos here, let me just play a quick little bit of audio from one of them that I like here, and you can see what I mean about how Ron explains it and breaks these concepts down real easily.
ไปรับออเดอร์หน่อยดิเอาทำไมเหรอเจ๊ไม่กล้าไปเองฉันเขินเหรอโอ้ยหน้าตาหล่ออย่างนี้ฉันเก็บอาการไม่อยู่ไปเถอะช่วยยายหน่อยนะเดี๋ยวรับให้ เขิน means embarrassed and is used to describe feelings of shyness or awkwardness. It is a more specific term than I, which carries the same meaning, but can be used to describe a wider range of emotions. If you can use these terms correctly, it can help you sound more like a native speaker.
So, Ron, I thought that was really cool. And that's the kind of stuff that you do a lot of, which I find really helpful, which obviously a lot of other people do as well. How do you put these videos together? Where do you get the ideas, and how do you actually film and edit them? You do it all yourself?
Yeah, I'm a one man show at the moment. I normally I just look up a word maybe in a book or something that me and my wife have talked about, or maybe something that I've heard from someone online that they are wondering about. Because I've had plenty of suggestions. Some people send me messages and say, "Hey, hey, can you explain this?" And if I think that it's something interesting, I'll take that idea and then I will sit down one day because I have my days where I do my brainstorming and writing.
Hmm.
So I'll come up with the word there or the phrase that I want to teach, and then I'll brainstorm an idea for a conversation that would be uh, a good example of the use of that word or phrase. Then I go ahead and write the explanation of whatever it is, and that'll just be my rough draft. And over the next 2 or 3 days, I'll revise that multiple times until I've gotten to the point where I feel like this is a precise or succinct way of explaining the topic.
Hmm.
Then once I have my final script, I'll go ahead and set up for shooting. And normally I shoot around a certain time of day, it's around between 11 and 12 because the lighting is ideal, or maybe actually it's between 11 and 3 p.m. where my lighting is ideal. Because I have dark skin, so of course, natural light actually makes my skin look a lot better. So I shoot right in front. We have an open layout house where we have the patio out front and our dining room table is out front, and so that's my primary shooting location.
Okay.
So I'll shoot the different parts of it, and normally what I try to do is try to give some difference between the characters that are in my skit. So let's say, for example, I've waited a few days and I have a lot of hair. I've got, because I normally shave bald and I have a beard, and so I'll let it grow long, and then, one character will be the character with all with all the hair, and then while I'm shooting, after I've shot that part, then I'll go shave and,
Right. Yeah.
shave
Okay.
my hair and everything, and then I'll put on my outfit for that character, and then I'll shoot the other part.
That's some dedication, man.
Oh yeah. Because and the reason why I know how to do this is because I'm an actor. I don't know if you guys know about my history when it comes to acting. I've done a lot of commercials that have been that were released
right.
in African countries, and also I did a couple of commercials that you can see the playlist where there's some commercials I did in Thailand, and I got those because of my ability to speak Thai.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and I've also, performed in a couple of Hollywood movies, a Hong Kong film. There's a film that has yet to be released where I played a supporting role, which I don't know when they're going to release that, but
Nice.
anyway. So I have extended experience when it comes to production. Anyway, we're actually fully professional production, so I can, just use that and my experience with that and produce something at home. So once I finish shooting the video, then of course I have to edit it, and uh, I edit it in a way to ensure that the whole point is for them to pay attention to the vocabulary words or the phrases that I have decided to teach them. And sometimes I try to make it funny, but not all the time because that's not the point. The whole
Right.
point is to help them understand what this phrase means and how they can use it in the appropriate way. So that's that last part where I give the explanation is the main thing. So that's
Mm.
where I spend the most time on making sure that they'll understand. And then once I edit it all together, then I go ahead and publish it on the various platforms. And the first one that I did was a word that I'm sure you guys are familiar with. You know the word "gaw."
Right. Laka.
It's got 20 meanings.
It really doesn't. But see, that's the thing. It really doesn't have a specific meaning.
Mm.
But that's one of the things I like about Thai is that it's so flexible, and if you understand the basic principles, there's so much that you can do with it. It's very entertaining,
Hmm.
but I've got really good feedback on what I've been doing, and I didn't intentionally do something that nobody else was doing, but apparently I have. I don't think there's anybody that's making these little videos, little funny videos to trying to teach people little things about Thai, which I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy with.
It,
I have a lot of fun with it.
it seems to have struck a chord. They're very popular. So, yeah, if listeners, if you haven't seen them, I urge you to check out Ron on social media and follow along like we all are. We'll all get better slowly. The rising tide lifts all
Yeah,
boats, kind of thing.
I hope that's because, like I said, I hope that people uh, learn this language not just so that they can communicate better, so that they gain the new perspective on what life is like here and the way that Thai people tend to live it.
Dude, I got to say, this was one of my favorite interviews. We've had a lot of good interviews recently. Obviously, my interview with my buddy David Cluck, I could talk to him for hours. Mookie was great. But Ron is just so easy to talk to. He's fun. He's interesting. I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah, really, really cool guy. It was a bummer he doesn't live in Bangkok. We could hang out. But hey, Ron, next time you're in
True that.
Bangkok, make sure to look us up. I've been
sure.
watching his videos for a long time, and I finally decided to sort of put some feelers out to see how we could get in touch with him. And it was actually our buddy Dan, who's been on the show many times, who put us in touch. But it was really cool, and his videos, like I say, are just they're so short, but he has this knack of breaking a concept or an idea down into a very, very simple and easy to digest little nugget of information.
That's right.
Yeah, for me anyway, like it's a word that I've heard a million times, but when he does it, I go, "Oh, I got it. Okay."
Right,
okay.
right. Yeah, he's a good teacher, good explainer, and he's got a totally unique style. So I mentioned this in the interview. I can't remember if I said it in part 1 or part 2, but just his whole style, his shtick, if you will, is very unique. Like listeners, if you never checked him out, you got to check it out. He's kind of a drama guy. He's an actor, and he's got a good sense of humor. He doesn't mind making fun of himself or doing silly, goofy things, but he's also smart and insightful. And there's just, when I discovered him, I was just like, wait, there's nobody like this guy.
Yeah. He's very, he's just a regular dude. He just puts off that like regular, approachable, friendly guy vibe that's really appealing in these short form videos that you watch on Instagram. Although I got to say, Ron, I could do with less of the here's me when I was a personal trainer photos and showing your 12-pack of abs on the Instagram, making me feel bad about myself.
I saw that. If you enjoyed this part 1, definitely listen to part 2, because in part 2, we really get into his life story, how he met his wife, and just his whole general experience of living in Thailand. Every expat has their own Thai journey, and I would say Ron's is pretty unique.
Right. Yeah, sure. He's African American, and he's got some really, really interesting and sort of eye-opening insights into racism in Asia and how that compares to racism back home. So really, really cool part 2.
I love talking to him about it. One of the interesting things, he didn't focus on it that much in part 1, but he did say it. If you listen, and he does say this in his videos, if you listen to his advice for learning Thai, he actually, one of his basic piece of advice is like that you really have to take it seriously and put your time in. Like
I know.
He's very realistic. He's not like selling something like, he actually does teach some Thai, but he's actually quite realistic about it. He's like, hey, yeah, this is not easy. Like, he's like, I spent hours and hours, and, it took me a few years. So I kind of like that. He's realistic about doing this.
I know, but it's like the guys that tell you how to lose weight. Well, just eat less and exercise more. You're like, yeah, I knew that, but it's just hard.
What he's saying is you have to recognize that it's hard, so don't be surprised.
Right. Okay.
Don't be surprised when it's a struggle, and set aside the time. Just take it seriously, which I think is good advice. You're just lazy. You're just lazy, dude.
Guilty as charged. Well, thanks, Ron. It was a real pleasure talking to you. And listeners, part 2 is another really, really interesting discussion with Ron. So we'll see you back here next week, and hopefully we'll see Ron in person for that cold beer that we've been talking about.
For real.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss and decide if it's something that we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. And this week, Ed, it is my turn to ask you something.
Okay, hit me.
So, Ed, I'm going to take a cue from actually one of Ron's videos that he just posted recently. And this is something that he does really well, is he does these little skits where we talk about it in the show, but he plays both characters, one with a wig and one without a wig, and they have this little conversation. And he did one recently with something that highlights a particular aspect of how some Thais emote, and it's called ngon, which means sulky, pouting, or giving the cold shoulder. And in this video, he's got a guy trying to impress a girl, and he's playing the girl, and she's got her lips sort of like pouted in this little mischievous, uppity frown, and she's like literally ignoring him and going, Right. And this is called ngon.
Oh, I didn't know that. So this is a good Ron thing. This is the kind of stuff you learn if you follow American Thai Guy.
Now, the corollary to that is ngaw, where the person who is being ngawed, sort of like tries to appease the other person or placate them and win back their favor.
I get it.
My question is specifically about the ngawn, the sulky pout that you see in a lot of Thai soap operas. What do you think of this? Do you have an opinion on this?
Interesting. I mean, I am aware of this, but I'm not sure I thought of it as anything unique. Like, obviously anyone can pout, so do you see this as like a very common Thai thing?
Well, I do. I see it all the time whenever I watch Thai soap operas. And
I don't watch Thai soap operas, so
well,
maybe I'm
neither
less
do I.
familiar with.
Let me rephrase that. Whenever I have accidentally watched a bit of a Thai soap opera,
I love the word.
What am I doing? And change the channel. Yeah, I see it there, and my wife does it sometimes too when she's sort of being a little bit playful and funny. So it's this pout. But I got to say, man, I hate this with every molecule of my being.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Now, is it because you think it's insincere? Like, pouting is pouting. I guess it's childish, whatever. But it's like, what would cause you to hate it?
Pouting is something a 3-year-old does when they don't get the peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner.
I see. Okay.
It's so stupid and such a waste of time. It's such an insincere, dumb game that is completely unnecessary and childish and just it just rubs me the wrong way.
Interesting. I guess I dodged a bullet because although, as everyone in the world knows, my marriage had some problems. I don't remember this being a thing. I mean, I know what you're talking about. I know what pouting is, and I obviously Thai women sometimes do it, but it just wasn't an issue in my relationship. So, for me, I guess I'm just going to have to live with it. It just doesn't. To me, I could see how I would be annoyed with childish behavior, but it's funny that it needles you.
Oh God, it bothers me so much. But I never would have known, how to actually define it and say the words for it if I hadn't to watch Ron's videos. So again, thank you, Ron.
Yeah. So now you can use the word. You can be like, "Don't gnawn me.
Don't gnawn me.
Don't gnawn me."
That's fun. Gotta get a shirt made with that and just walk around.
That's great.
That's good.
Alrighty. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, BangkokPodcast.com on the web, or simply BangkokPodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Totes my goats. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads. I'm BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay cool out there. Stay close to your air cons. We'll see you back here next week.
No doubt.